Hey everybody, today I'm going to record two different videos and I'll post both of them on my YouTube channel. But I wanted to speak to you in the first video about my impressions on the Nikon Z8 right here. Now, a lot of you know that I came from Sony. I used to have the Sony A7 III, A7 R3 and A7C. I sold my Sony gear. I kept my lenses and I kept my Sony A7C with me. Now, no comparison to the Sony today, although I feel like the Nikon does a few things better than the Sony, but they are better at certain things. So I'm not comparing Sony to Nikon today. My intent today is to talk to you about what I think of the Nikon Z8. Now, I have had this camera for a few weeks now. I would say 5 to 6 weeks now, and I have kind of gone all over the place. I mean, done all sorts of photography, from portraits to landscape to fast action to low light fast action with this camera. And I want to tell you what I think about my Z8. Now, the lens that you see is a 20mm Sigma f1.4. This is a lens that I used to run on my Sony camera. It's running on an autofocus adapter from I believe it is TechArt, or wait one second. Let me see what adapter I'm using today. I'm not using the TechArt adapter, but I have to talk to you about the TechArt adapter as well, which I'm using. So I use the TechArt adapter on my Leica lens. It's a Voigtlander lens for the M mount that you can use on a Leica. I just use it on using a TechArt adapter, which makes it autofocus capable on my Z8. And we'll talk about this in the next video. But that's not the intent of the conversation that we're going to have today. Today I want to specifically comment on one of the best digital camera manufacturers, one of the best camera manufacturers that has existed for more than 100 years now, and what I feel about the Nikon Z8. Now, you all know that I have a Nikon Z9 as well, right? So nothing hidden over there. But the whole point about now you all know that I have a Nikon Z9, and when I'm comparing the Z8, I'll compare it to my Nikon Z9. So are they the same camera? The short answer and the quick answer is no, they're not. So if you want to switch off the video right now and move to another video and watch somebody else, go ahead and do that. But in the rest of the video, for the rest 5 to 10 minutes, I'm going to explain why I think they're not the same camera. And you have to trust me on my word, because it's coming in from experience. I have been using both cameras in the field, run and gun, picking one camera with one lens and the other one with another lens, depending on the kind of subject I'm shooting at that point of time. As an example, in a baseball match when I'm shooting, I usually end up using a longer lens. 70 to 200 is a good one that I end up using, because I try to capture a full frame picture of those kids that are playing baseball. And that being said, when I'm targeting cricket, I try to capture the batsman completely, as well as the bowler in action completely. Now, I did not have those issues with my D850, or I never had issues with my Sony on this one. But I still think the Nikon Z9 is the best camera out there in the market, period, for the price that it sells. I don't think the Sony was better than the Z9. I think the Z9 is better than the Sony. But is the Z8 same as the Z9? No, it's not true. And a lot of people end up saying that the Z8 is a baby Z9, and a lot of YouTubers started looking at the specs and they started saying the Z8 is a baby Z9. That's not true. That's not true. No, 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 no. I still think the Z9 is better than the Z8. And the Z8 is a model that may not be able to compete with the R5 as such. I'm sorry. I said it, and I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this one, or hate messages for this one, but I still would love to be honest with you rather than do a dishonest propaganda. So why do I think that the Z9 is better than the Z8? And why do I think the Z8 is not a baby Z9? The first and the foremost is that as you shoot, now wait, if you shoot portraits, I don't think you need a Z9 or a Z8. You can do a much better job with a ZFC as well, with the right lens. The difference gets to be clear when you start shooting sports, or when you start shooting bird in flight, or action photography, low light action photography. And that is where the two XQD cards or the CF Express cards in the Z9 changes the game. In my Z9, the speed at which I used to capture the images and be ready for the next capture. Again, if you have seen the game of badminton, it goes very fast, and it's kind of dark, or not dark, but indoors where you start shooting. It's kind of basketball, same speed, or maybe faster than basketball. But when you shoot the image, it's very important to process the image in the camera, which the Z9 processes it much faster than the Z8, because it has a freaking SD card. And however fast SD card you keep, if you are backing up your photos, it's never going to be as fast as a Z9. And every time I try to do fast action photography, the secondary card slot holds me back, and that's frustrating. I have a tendency of picking up my Z8 because lighter, but the speed at which it's capturing the images and processing the images, I feel like I'm losing a lot of shots if I'm shooting fast action sports. And that's why I'm now gravitating more towards the Z9. And that's where I see a lot of professional photographers who focus on sports or fast action will not prefer the Z8. The second one that I'm seeing is the photography that you can do for birds in action, birds in flight, right? So the Z9 has a feature that the Z8 does not have. And what it does is it takes a picture, and you don't have to be there. You can set up the image and a section of the image where if an action happens, it automatically tracks the action and starts taking pictures. But for a Z8, you have to be there present to press the trigger. And we all know that birds or animals are not the same when they see a human in their environment or smell a human in their environment. If you take a photo with a human away from it, you tend to get much better pictures. You tend to get a very natural pose, however far you stand. I use my 200 to 500 lens to take the pictures, but my Nikon Z8, with the Nikon Z8 I have to be present to press the images. With my Nikon Z9, I just set it up and focus it in an area, say a nest, where the birds are feeding the young ones, and the moment it sees action, it starts taking pictures. Now the other thing that I can do is I can use my mobile phone to connect with my camera and take pictures, and then kind of stand away from the camera. But the problem is that the app and the Bluetooth connection with Nikon isn't that accurate, isn't that dependable. So again, I don't think the Z8 is a baby Z9. And for fast action and for professional photographers out there, You can disagree with me, but for fast action and professional photographers, go for the Z9. You don't have that hot card warning, which again is a big issue with this camera. You leave this camera recording out there at its best recording feature sets, and within 15 to 16 minutes you will get a hot card warning. Within 22-25 minutes it's going to stop working, and it's very frustrating. It's really very frustrating. In some cases, especially with Indian ceremonies, the action starts at 20 minutes, 23 minutes. You have to keep the video rolling. You have to take everything. It's so functional. It's so much action is there in an Indian wedding or an Indian ceremony that you cannot lose that action. You have to keep taking videos. And guess what? When the actual bride and groom meet and start exchanging garlands, that's when you get a frustrating hot card warning. It's not good. It's not good. Now Nikon, I mean, how do I say this? My opinion is that this is an excellent camera, but it's not the Z9. If you are a professional, go for the Z9. If you are amateur, semi-professional, you can still go with the Z8. But if you're a professional, if you make money out of your photography, not landscape, fast action, events, ceremonies, indoor sports, birds in flight, in that case, I highly recommend that you go with the Z9. There is no better camera than the Z9. In a month and a half, frustratingly, I have realized that I cannot depend on my Z8 for those fast action photos. I cannot depend on my Z8 for a longer video in the best format. I have to kind of reduce my format for a longer video. And it's not about the card. I'm using one of the best cards. It does not heat up when I'm using it on my Z9, but it heats up when it's on a Z8, and that's very frustrating. Yeah, that's about it. And so in a scale of 1 to 10, if I had to rate this camera, I would rate it a 7 out of 10. I would rate the Nikon Z9 a 9.5 out of 10. I would rate the Sony A1, which I've not owned but I've used. The Sony A1 I would rate a 9.5 out of 10. The reason I would rate the Nikon Z9 higher than the Sony A1 is because you don't have to worry about the battery. It just runs throughout the ceremony. If you're in a 6 to 8 hour ceremony, you're not really worrying about the battery. You might be worried about the card, but you're not worried about the battery. With the A1, you have to worry about the battery, because ultimately you'll be exchanging batteries at least once in that 6 to 8 hour period. At least I did that, and I don't waste battery, and I don't waste energy. So yeah, Nikon Z9 at a 9.5 and Z8 at 7 to 7.5. Is it the best camera out there for the price? Probably. But I would have expected Nikon to come up with a better product. They took 18 months to come up with this. I'm a little bit frustrated. I'm also hearing the issues coming up with this attachment breaking in some cameras, which is again very frustrating. Come on, Nikon, you made us pay so much. Don't release products that don't work out in the market. And again, your autofocus works, I'm fine with that, no complaints. But when you charge money, be responsible for the money that you deliver. I love you guys. I still think that the best two cameras that you the best two cameras that you have released are the Nikon D850, number one, followed by the Nikon D500. The Z9 is probably the Z9, the D850, and the D500 are the three best cameras that you've released in recent 5 to 6 years. Other than that, nothing else to say. I am a little bit frustrated with what they are delivering. I didn't have these many complaints with Sony. At least after Sony A7 III, most of their products were good. And I'm kind of debating, should I go back to Sony or just stay back with Nikon? That's about it, guys. my review for this one. It's not a review, but kind of short review of the problems that I am facing with this camera. 3 problems: hot card warning, speed. I wish they had similar cards in here. I wish they had the same cards that they had in the Nikon Z9. That would have been much better for fast action. And yeah, too many problems coming up. This breaking off. Nothing else to say, guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.